This one will be kind of short and simple. I got a lot of phone calls about this one as well, primarily from people looking to purchase dynos, but occasionally from some of the guys making big power wanting to know what we have to keep the car cool. Just finished with the car and the dyno, so everything's pulled out and turned on and whatnot. So I'll give you a rundown on Mainline's vehicle cooling fan real quick. And it's something that was on the fence about purchasing, and now that I have it, I couldn't live without it. So I'll show you what this thing's all about. So you wouldn't really think that there would be much in the way of conversation as far as a fan goes, but most people, when they're here, they don't even realize that this is a fan. It is definitely really big, and it works really, really well. You can run cars with no coolant, and just within a couple minutes be able to make another run. It almost works too good, and they have some fixes for that, which I'll explain in a second. So what I mean by the fan working too good, as stupid as that sounds, is it will actually cool the car off too much if you leave it running. So like if you start a car up when it's cold with the fan on, it'll just never get up to operating temperature. And if you make a run and while you have car off making your adjustments, and you leave the fan running, next thing you know the coolant temperatures drop down to 120 degrees on a 100-degree day, and then now you gotta wait for the car to warm back up. So with that being said, I'll show you a couple of cool things that make this thing invaluable, even outside of just working so well as just a fan. So you always have the keyboard with you in the car, and all you have to do is hit V for vehicle fan, and the fan turns on and off. So that makes all the difference in the world when you get into a car that has some crazy roll cage and super hard to get in and out of seats. The last thing you want to do is get in and out of the car over and over again just to turn the fan on and off. So sometimes you make a run, leave the fan on, and you just sort of forget about it and forget to hit the button to turn it off. So next thing you know, coolant temp's down and you got to wait 10 minutes for it to warm back up again. So I found myself using this feature more often than not, and let's take a look at that. So if we go to the screen, let's see if I can even remember where it is. Setup, dyno, fan control. So we have vehicle fan control. I leave it on unless there's a reason to turn it off, and basically anything above 200 axle RPM, the fan comes on, and then I'll play with this value a little bit, but right around a minute, so more or less, I'll keep the fan on, and then it will automatically turn itself off. And then once we start a run again, as soon as we get the wheels turning, the fan turns back on, and it makes it really easy to keep the temperature of the car in check and consistent throughout the day. And depending on horsepower levels and coolant and fans and radiators and everything else, it really speeds everything up tremendously, and it can cut hours out of tuning the car. It's more than paid for itself, that's for sure. So I don't remember the exact specs on this fan, and don't quote me on this. I want to say Mainline's actually come out with a different model since this one, but this particular one is 3-phase. I can only imagine they have 240 volt options as well. And it just plugs right into the dyno, like right here. That's what gives you all of the, the control through the keyboard and whatnot. The fan is super powerful. On some cars, depending on how the hood is, we've even had to take the hood off because we're scared it's going to break. It works really, really well. I couldn't even live without it anymore now that I have it. So if you're purchasing a dyno, I strongly suggest that you look into picking up a fan as well. So any of this type of stuff, I always get asked, like, what's it cost, what's it cost, what's it cost? And people seem to be more concerned with what things cost than how they work or how they perform. This particular fan, I would say, realistically cost about what I expected it to cost. I was hoping it would be a little bit cheaper, but that rarely works out. And the shipping costs, since it had to come from Australia, that hurt a little bit. It did not ship with my dyno. I'm sure there was probably some combined shipping. You could save a little bit there, but I ordered this shortly after purchasing the dyno. And again, I think they came out with a different model, so and they have different options and things as well. So again, talk with Todd or Craig, and they can get you a quote. And it doesn't matter what it costs; it's worth every penny. This is one of those things that just the amount of time that it saves you, it will absolutely pay for itself. Another thing to, I guess that's worth noting is it actually cools the car down really, really fast. Like if you need to work on something, like you want to change a set of spark plugs on a V8, usually you got to sit there and wait for 30 minutes with the typical like carpet fans that everybody uses. It just wastes a ton of time, but with this it can, I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, not even. You can have the car cool enough to work on it, not even have to wear gloves. So it's a lifesaver. So just the fan by itself, they're pretty ugly and big and inconvenient. So Mainline, makes the whatever the hell you want to call it, that ultimately ends up being a great place to hold a couple of pizzas, or 3/4 of your toolbox usually ends up on there, but it's on wheels, moves around real nice, easily unplugs. And best tip I have for you is make sure you lock the wheels before you turn it on, because it will try and drive down the street. So I always check that about 10 or 12 times before I turn it on, and I always have my finger on the V button the first time it turns on, just to make sure. And I guess it's also worth noting is the V button still works even if you have it set up to turn on automatically. That's about it for this video. I can't really express well enough how much I like this fan, how helpful it is. If something happened to this one, I'd buy another one tomorrow. I wouldn't even question it. So if you like seeing these videos about the Mainline dynos and other dyno related stuff, make sure you subscribe. We're going to start sprinkling some welding, fabrication stuff in here as well. Haven't had much time for it. Somebody's here. And anyways, I guess we'll see you next time. Thanks.